Any comments from any of the board members? Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? Now, with that, then, Mary Ann, do you have a resolution on this?
In January 2018, Jennifer Mitchell applied for site development plan approval to construct a spa and to legalize an existing patio on her property at 131 Rutter Du Bois Lane. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated January 2nd listed a number of issues, most of which were addressed in a subsequent submission. The proposed improvements required variances for coverage and location of the pool, which the Zoning Board of Appeals granted on January 23rd. Planning Board held a public hearing on January 3rd and February 7th. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Mitchell Residence, prepared by Matthew Behrens, subject to compliance with the items listed in the February 6, 2018 Han memorandum. You said they're all ready, but it's on. If they're,
Okay, that's
if
fine.
they're satisfied, they're satisfied.
Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Eric. There you go, Matt. Keep 1, 2, Mary Ann, both roll. Thank you. Next item is 2018-01, 2 Riverview Court, Lawrence and Lori Regan.
Good evening. My name is AJ Capola. I'm the project architect representing Mr. and Mrs. Regan. I was here last month. We made a submission in the beginning of January. We received comments from your engineer last month, and I believe we've addressed those comments. Basically, this is a second floor addition, 810 square foot addition over an existing garage. So there's no impact to the site. There's no site work. It's completely over an existing footprint.
No additional coverage.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments from any of the board members? No. Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter?
We talked about windows on the side. Did that ever
I think
change,
they
or
added-
did you add any
It
windows?
was,
I thought I was going to architectural review next, so I did not make any changes. I'm happy to make a change.
but there's the one window on this
There's
side.
that
There's
one window.
all bamboo over here. I mean, you really can't see it, but if you want me to add a window, I'm happy to add a window.
I think that was, you mentioned last time too, I think that
It was a comment,
it was,
yes.
it was determined that yeah, there wasn't much visibility of that side of the house from the adjoining lot.
Yeah.
Right, and that, the other side of the wall is a closet? Is that correct? I'm surprised that the homeowner didn't want any light, like natural light in
There's
there.
quite a bit of light in the front. That's the visible part of the building. And basically, this is just an exercise area with a large walk-in closet in the rear. Which,
And the back of the house for,
two pair, yes. And the walk-in, yes.
it's just not on the side.
Yeah, I really didn't think it was needed, to be honest.
Okay, Carolyn read about that.
Any comments from anyone in the audience? No? Then, I have a motion to, oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Mary, your
yeah.
resolution.
In January 2018, Larry Reagan applied for site plan approval to construct a second-floor addition over the existing garage of his house at 2 Riverview Court. The property is located in the village watershed, but the proposal does not involve increasing the footprint of the house and garage. Han reviewed the plans, and in a memo dated January 2nd listed a number of issues, all of which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Planning Board held a public hearing on January 3rd and February 7th. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Regan Residence, itemized drawings prepared by Coppola Associates.
Can I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Capoli, if you take those, just give one to Mary Ann. That's for you.
Yeah, you need it. It's your approval.
Okay, that's the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think since George is here, before we get to item number 3, we're just going to go back for a second. There are minutes that were circulated to the board for December and January 4th. Any additional comments? All okay with the minutes? And can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are adopted. Okay. Item number 3, 2017-34, 7 Gray Rock Terrace, Rob Davis and Lisa Iacona Davis.
Hi, Douglas McClure, architect for Rob and Lisa. Since our last meeting, you kindly let us go to the ZBA. We've gotten our variance. Addressed the comments on Han's previous memo. Had a nice long talk with the landscape architect about drip lines and roots. And we received the comments from Doug for this meeting. Apparently the engineer put the wrong, he didn't update the site plan to show some of the walls in the back. He's already addressing that, and we should have that in this week.
Okay.
Doug, you have to add some of the, from the site plan on your architectural plan as well, the curbs and
The curbs, yes.
stuff like that.
We will have that coordinated.
Any comments from any board members? No. Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter? No. Mary Ann, do you have a resolution?
Yes.
In December 2017, Rob Davis and Lisa Iacona Davis applied for site plan approval for interior reconstruction and a garage expansion on their house at 7 Gray Rock Terrace. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and then memoranda dated December 5th and January 2nd listed a number of issues, most of which were addressed in subsequent submissions. The proposed improvements required a variance for coverage, which the Zoning Board of Appeals granted on January 23rd. The Planning Board held a public hearing on December 6th, January 3rd, and February 7th. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Davis Residence. Some of the drawings prepared by Mixie Architecture and the others prepared by Hudson Engineering, subject to compliance with the item listed in the February 6th Han memorandum.
We have a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item is 2017-36, 33 Dearman Close, Kenneth Corio and Natasha Mann. 33 Dearman Close, right?
Good evening.
Tim, do you want to take the microphone? And identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Tim Cronin, engineer. I'm working with Gotham Design and putting together the site plan for the project that's in front of you. At the last meeting, it was suggested that a site walk be had with our landscape architect and the village's consulting landscape architect, which they did have. Some slight modifications were made to the plan, including relocating the fence that was discussed in the field, as well as coordinating the landscape plan with the proposed location of the swale, which was also done. Plans were submitted. We received a review memo from Han Engineering indicating that things were okay, and here to address or answer any questions that the board may have.
Any comments from any of the board members?
Didn't we had a question with the fence and the grade in the back, and if we were going to move the fence? Did that happen?
Do you have that schematic that showed where the fence was located and the relocation of? I know you had sent that in the packet.
Yep.
I'll hold this up so people can see, but the red was the original location, and it looks like we moved it to the black line if you want to take a closer look.
Better for our
And then I think the other thing too was, as you said, you were out there with Steve Lopez and with our landscape architect Suzanne Nolan. I think some additional trees are to be planted too, I think,
Not additional trees. She wanted to have, here, Mike. She asked that the village would have a representative there when the material was being planted in the easement area, right up the driveway.
All right, I thought maybe it was the previous one that she had talked about some trees.
Yeah, I don't, there were some trees that got shifted in position.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Oh, here's what it was. It was some following trees in the woodland buffer strip planted in naturalistic configuration.
Right.
I guess 4 northern red oak and 2 scarlet oak.
Okay, I don't,
No, they're not on it, but
But
the
the
resolution
resolution
does
is subject
condition
to
it
that.
on those three
okay,
plans.
which is fine.
Fine.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from any of the board members on this?
So she signed off on it?
Yes. Any other comments? Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter? Okay, Susan, Mary Ann, do you have a resolution?
Actually, she made recommendations, and those are you'll see they're incorporated in the resolution.
But they're not on these plans?
No,
Right.
they're in the report. probably
So when
that we
it,
just
when it
got.
does get finally approved, the plans will also show that?
Their next submission to the ARB has to show all this changes.
Because remember, we had a previous time when we did it this way, and then all of a sudden, it was brought up that the plans were different than the resolution.
Well, before you issue a building permit.
Before we issue a building permit.
As long as, okay.
Yeah.
That we just-
Changed.
In November 2017, Kenneth Corio and Natasha Mann applied for site development plan approval to construct a new single-family house at 33 Dearman Close. Han Engineering reviewed the plans, and in memoranda dated October 31st, 2017, December 5th, 2017, and January 2nd, 2018, listed a number of issues which were satisfactorily addressed in subsequent submissions. Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on November 1st and December 6th, 2017, and January 3rd and February 7th, 2018. It's a type 2 action under SECRA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Kenneth and Natasha Corio, subject to, 1, compliance with the recommendations listed in Suzanne Nolan, ASLA's February 6, 2018 staff report. This I was talking about, George. 2, relocating the 4 trees, the drip lines of which are currently shown in the fire lane, so that the maximum growth ring of each tree lies outside of the fire emergency lane. 3rd, reinstalling the fire lane barrier as required by the approved Dearman Park subdivision plat. And 4th, the project engineer must sign off on the as-built drawings for site work compliance prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Can I have a motion to adopt the resolution? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Next item is 2017-15, 24 South Buckout Street, Roy Roos.
Roy Roos, the owner, and my engineer is at the Town of Greenberg meeting tonight, so we have a big thing going on there. So I'm by myself again. Previously,
Mr. Roos, do you want to take the microphone?
Yes. Previously, I've applied to do off-street parking.
Where's that last resolution?
Did he take both?
Yeah, here's
one.
Do you need it?
Yeah, did you have the other one, right?
I gave that-
Yeah, one's ours, one's yours.
Okay.
Yes.
3 family residence.
Sorry.
on Buckout Street. We got a lot of space on the right side yard, but, you know, there's trees and other things in consideration. We take the trees issues seriously, so I had to do a redesign and downsize to 3 spaces and having 1 space eliminated on the street. And so what I have proposed is 3 spaces facing sideways, which is a little easier for going in and out. Then we go out nose first, which is safer, better visibility, good sight distance. And I'm only removing a pear tree, which is somewhat in decline. All the other trees remain.
And then how high will the wall be at the back of the parking area?
It's going to be a little bit, about 5 feet at the most on the left side rear. Most of the wall's going to be less than that, probably about 3 on the right side, and it tapers off to less than a foot towards the front on the right side.
Okay. And then there's a fence between your property and the adjoining property to the north of the parking lot?
Yes, the neighbor just recently built a nice new 6-foot picket fence with a little extension that runs almost up to the sidewalk.
Okay.
So most of the views are already obstructed to a certain degree. We plan on probably putting in a yew hedge or something nice, evergreen on the right side, and then also some yews in the front, which would screen most of it from the sidewalk. So actually visibly it appeared. Now I have some photographs of the existing conditions. At last meeting there was a request. I don't have any fancy ones here, but basically I could pass these around. There are views from the neighbor's property and also from the sidewalk. This gives you a perspective of the scale.
And that's the new picket fence?
Yeah, the new fence is in those photographs. And actually from their house, all they can see is the fence. They wouldn't be able to see anything. Now, if they're walking along the sidewalk, yeah, you're going to be able to see something. So, we can't totally block it out completely. Although you still got a little bit of a view of the river if you're walking down the sidewalk, even with the hedge in place. So it's not like a total obstruction.
And the stockade fence that's shown here, that's farther west along the property line between you and the neighbor?
Yes, the corner of their building, they have a taller fence, and then they put the shorter 4.5-foot picket fence in the front.
Okay. Any comments from the board members?
I have a question with the entryway to the parking area. Is it coming from south to north or north to south?
It's on the it's on the west side of the street. So yeah, if you're going southbound, you make a right turn. If you're coming from the other direction, you make a left turn. But either way, the turn's very easy to maneuver. And in my set that we applied with, I showed some diagrams of a vehicle going in and also backing out. And there's, for an SUV, would actually be able to back out very easily, actually. So we made it a little bit wider, but it's just enough to, minimize the coverage and the tree issues. One Japanese maple, which is a larger tree that's probably at least 70 years old, will be protected, and there will be seepage drainage design underneath to allow the roots to breathe, so the tree will not be compromised. And I had a certified arborist check it all out.
I think just a couple of comments from our landscape architect. Just the existing picket fence should be retained in the new design, which you are, and the yew hedge along South Buckout Street should be pruned to a maximum height of 4 feet. I guess that's your proposed.
Yeah,
So,
we could prune it to that.
Right.
There's different
I think just so-
varieties. You could buy different varieties of landscape. I didn't get really specific on the
Right.
landscape species. They use generally poplar, hardy. It's very attractive. It's a nice green color. A lot of people like it. So.
Any other comments from any of the board members?
So the curb, there's an existing curb cut, correct?
Yes.
And that's still in existence and still?
It's still there. There used to be a 2-car garage there a long time ago. It's been torn down probably, 30-plus years ago. We're going to shift it over a little bit to the left, and there's a section of the curb that doesn't exist that we will have to add to restore that portion of it. That way that the vehicle that's parked right here, there's enough space there between the nose of that vehicle where there's still a good turn radius that they could turn in readily, easily.
And the spot you're asking to remove is?
Right in front of that old curb cut, which is more or less, it's not totally centered. You could see these, if you can make this out, you got these 2 tick marks right here. These are the space demarcations on the street. So this would be the space that would be eliminated. And we shifted this in this position so we got better width. It's wider than the old cut, actually.
Okay. And when our DPW will go out there and restripe it once it...
He has to get a permit from DPW, and
So you have to go back to the
he went to the
trustees?
trustees already.
No, right, yes.
Yeah, he's all
there.
set. So part of the building permit is to get a DPW permit, and he'll have to work out, either he pays us to do it, or he gets it done.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the board members then? Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No? Okay, Mary Ann. Oh, one other thing, I guess you're gonna have to go to the ZBA for a variance on this? No?
The coverage is.
The lot coverage exceeds allowable, I think that was...
No, that-
But then
He brought it back down? Okay, okay. Okay, Mary Ann.
Yeah, in July 2017, Roy Roos applied for site plan approval to construct 4 parking spaces along with the retaining wall and drainage facilities on his property at two-family residence at 24 South Buckout, which lies in the View Preservation Overlay District. Constructing the parking area would require the removal of up to 2 on-street parking spaces in front of the Roos house, which removal the Board of Trustees approved in April 2017, up to 2. Subject to planning board site plan approval of the parking area, whereas the proposed construction would require a wetlands permit. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on July 11th and November 1st and suggested that the parking area be moved and reduced in size, which suggestions were followed in subsequent submissions. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated July 10th and October 27th listed a number of issues, most of which were addressed in subsequent submissions. The plans submitted for the February 2018 meeting show a 3-space parking area and the elimination of only 1 on-street parking space. In a memorandum dated February 6th, Han reviewed the wetland permit application and found that the proposed construction would not impact the wetland. The proposed construction would not impact views of the Hudson River from neighboring properties or adjacent right-of-ways. The plans were reviewed by the village's landscape architect, Suzanne Nolan, who made 2 recommendations. It's type 2 action under secret. Resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Stormwater Pollution Prevention and Erosion Control Plan, subject to 1, compliance with the items listed in the February 6th, 2018 Han memorandum, and compliance with the items listed in Suzanne Nolan's February 6th, 2018 staff report.
Do we have a copy of the staff report for him?
From
Suzanne. Yeah.
Do you have a copy of that, Mr. Roos?
He probably have it.
I don't think.
There you go. Here you go, Mr. Ruth.
Yeah, this
It's the same things that the chairman read to you.
yeah, we
Yeah,
got
but
an
just-
email with
There's
it.
just the 2 comments about the hue being kept to a minimum
Oh, 4
maximum height
feet.
of 4 feet.
Yeah, this I
and the
haven't
existing
seen.
pickets fence to remain. So just, all right, you have a copy of that.
Okay.
I can have a motion to approve the resolution. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're approved.
Thank you. I must say, what I really appreciate is your sincerity all the way through this process, because you came in with a lot of different types of approaches, on which we sort of had issues with, and you worked very closely with this board, so I appreciate your efforts.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, it's a tricky site and cheap club, so yeah, it's important. We need it, so.
I think you came with a good compromise.
Now, do I have to, any more?
Come see me tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
This is an easy part.
You can give that to Mary Ann.
I can get your approval.
Next item is 2017-06, 20 Barney Park, Joseph Maris.
Yes, my name is Chris Fokine, representing J.P. Maurer and Aaron Maurer, 20 Bonnie Park. I'm the builder designer for the renovation, and we've been discussing over several months a rear landing and stairway with overhead roof. And I've talked to Han Engineering over the months and gone back and forth, and I think that we finally have solved the problems and answered all these questions.
Was there a variance needed for this?
It's subject to.
This is subject to the variance? Okay. Doug, you're okay with all the comments?
Yes.
Any comments from any of the board members? No? Any comments from any of the public? No? Okay, then I think you have a resolution on this, Mary Ann.
In March 2017, Joseph Mira applied for site plan approval for modifications at the rear entrance to his house at 20 Barney Park, which is located in the View Preservation District. The modifications would require a variance for coverage. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated March 31st and December 1st listed a number of issues which were addressed to Han's satisfaction in the subsequent submission. Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on April 6th and December 6, 2017, and January 3rd and February 7th, 2018. The proposed improvements would not impact the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties. The action is a Type 2 action under SECRA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawing entitled Site Plan for 20 Barney Park prepared by Folkine Construction, subject to receiving a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for exceeding coverage.
Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next item is 2016-31, 20 Lewis Road, Papapanu and Lala.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Tim Cronin, and my office put together the revised site plan for the Papapanu and the proposed pool. As you recall, construction deviated from the originally approved plan, and subsequent to that, we put together this plan. As we discussed the last time we were here in December, it was suggested that we reach out to the neighbors and inform them of what had happened at the site, because they were very involved early on, which we did, and I actually spoke to Mrs. Goldsmith, and I think allayed her fears. So that was at the suggestion of this board, which we did do. Also, if you recall, we did meet out at the site, I believe, on December 15th, the Sunday, one or two Sundays after this meeting, to discuss the site, take a look at what was going on there. And at that point, it was suggested that we put in a few more rhododendrons to screen our property from the Goldsmith, which we've added here. The plans were revised, submitted to the village in advance of this meeting. We received a memo from Han Engineering where there were some slight technical things that he'd like clarified or added to the plan, which there's certainly no issue with us in doing so.
I think, wasn't there, didn't we also talk about some additional rhododendrons, which, on the other property line there, I don't know where the North Arrow is. So
We only talked about one spot.
Here's the back of the house.
There's 5 right here.
Right, but then, directly at the back of the house, then the property goes up a hill to the next house, and I thought there was like a little, barren area.
Where-
There. Oh, I'm sorry, okay, I was misreading the plan, okay, no, that's what.
Yeah, that's the location. We planted those 5.
Right, okay. Okay, any other comments from any of the board members? No, any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No? Then Mary Ann, do you have a resolution on this one?
Yeah, it's a little more involved, but on April 5th, 2017, the Planning Board granted site development plan approval to Panos Papapanu and Avanti Alala for a pool and related improvements to their property at 20 Lewis Road. In July 2017, the building inspector issued a stop work order because the construction of the pool deviated from the approved site plan in many significant respects, including 1, the pool location was moved 8 feet from the approved location. 2, the pool elevation and surrounding grade was raised more than 3.5 feet. 3, the height of the retaining wall west of the pool increased from 2 feet to a height that varied from 4 to 5.6 feet. In August 2017, applicants requested revised site plan approval to implement the modifications they had made to the pool location, height, etc. The applicants retained a new engineering firm which appeared at the September 6, 2017 Planning Board meeting and stated that he had inspected the 5-foot retaining wall, that he had, quote, some issues with the way it was constructed, and that there needed to be modifications to the wall. The Planning Board at its September 6, 2017 meeting stated that it believed the pool should be removed and built as approved by but at applicant's request did not vote on the application for amendment of the site development plan and voted to permit stabilization of the site during the winter. Hunt Engineering reviewed the plans, and a memoranda dated August 1st, September 6th, and December 5th listed a number of issues, most of which were addressed in subsequent submissions. Applicants presented to the Planning Board at its December 6, 2017 meeting a revised plan which kept the pool at the same location as built, but reduced the height of the retaining wall by approximately 2 feet by reducing the apron around the pool and creating a steep slope down to the wall. The Planning Board stated that it was concerned about the safety of the slope around the pool, so would prefer a reconstructed 5-foot retaining wall to the latest, would prefer the 5-foot retaining wall to what was the latest proposal. Applicant submitted a revised amended site development plan for the February 7th meeting, which was also reviewed by Hunt Engineering. The Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on August 2nd, September 6th, December 6th, and February 7th. The action is a type 2 action under SEQA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Amended Site Development Plan for Papapanu, prepared by Cronin Engineering, subject to 1, compliance with the items in the February 6, 2018 Hahn Memorandum, and 2, Cronin Engineering's signing off on compliance with the approved plans prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
You have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
We're going to go to, you're going to go to number 9 now. 2017-31, Hermits Road, Cristianato.
John Malone, Fergus Miller Architecture, representing Christian Auto. We did make some modifications based on comments last meeting. So on a on a sort of a large scale, we are moving forward with the force main sewer, which we discussed last time. It's been submitted, I believe, to Greenberg. We're moving forward with the petition to be added to the sewer district. One of the items I wanted just to confirm on that side is that the project that the house, the sewer that we're connecting to, which was the Abdow project that's at the end of the Herberts, that received conditional approval based on getting Greenberg approval, and we just wanted to confirm that that would be the same condition here. Our goal is not to get to building permit before that's approved, but at least to get to ARB and to move into construction documentations before we receive final approval. I just wanted to make sure that was the case.
I'm not ready to.
Oh, no, not today. I'm not talking about today.
Okay.
I'm just saying that.
Not ready to commit to that.
In terms of granting any conditional approval.
Right, there's too many
items.
There's way too many variables. No, it's more the Greenberg, Irvington, all these resolution things that I'm concerned about. I'm not against it, but I'm just not ready to commit to it.
Okay. I mean, because basically what our goal would be to put all of these comments to bed, except for the final approval of the sewer. And once we get to that, we can discuss it at that point. I mean, I feel like the...
Well, I think there are a number of items on here, John, that were on previous comments from the engineer and from the board. So why don't you address those comments and then just hold off until you got the approval from the town of Greenberg?
Well, I mean, I think-
Or until you decide that you're gonna go with a septic system, in which case then you're gonna have to change
Well,
the plan.
this is the thing I want, the approval from the town of Greenberg, there are steps associated with that they require a town board meeting and entry into the petition, and they also require a agreement between the Village of Irvington and Greenberg. These are all things that would potentially take longer. They would potentially take a few months to resolve. They wouldn't have any effect on our site plan if we had conditional approval. Based on that, you know, if it didn't happen, the approval, we wouldn't have site plan approval. That was.
Why go through a conditional approval if there's the possibility that this could change again? I don't think it's fair to take the board's time going back and forth on these issues. I think there are a number of issues, as I said, that are in here. Just address them, get them up to speed, and then get your approval from the town. And then we're all set to go.
Abdu had more done than you're proposing at this point. He was approved for being in the sewer district. You're not there yet.
Right.
There's a bunch of things. He had wetlands water course issues that had to get mitigated first. So it's a little bit different. But
assuming we could get to the same threshold as Abdu,
I'm not ready to commit to that. I'm not against it, but I'm not ready to commit to it.
Okay. Because I mean, Pat, the goal would be that we don't think that there's no indication that the sewer won't be approved. The Greenberg, I know, I'm just.
We're 9 years later on Abdu.
But no, I'm saying there's no indication that there's any objection at the Greenberg level. But I'm just saying that the risk that we would, I was just trying to indicate that the same threshold that was used for Abdu, that if we can show you that the only thing that's remaining is basically that final approval.
It's a car horse thing, John.
Okay.
We're not going to approve it again and then have you come back in 9 years for revision. So we need to see it at a minimum that the town of Greenberg accept you in the sewer district.
Right. No, that would be fine.
You have other people involved in the sewer. Are they going to be asking at the same time to be in the sewer district?
Yes, they're all being submitted simultaneously.
There's so many moving parts here that this board should not commit to any. Oh, they should be open-minded to it, but they shouldn't commit to anything until they see a more structured final approval outside this board. You have health department, you have Greenberg, then you have to go back to our trustees. You have to go to our trustees for.
Right. I think that's what our hope was we would pick up all of those things.
You have a dedication issue too for the sewer.
Can I just say one thing? Is that it sounds like what you really want to know, forget all the technical stuff, that sounds scary, are you asking is the board's attitude for or against having a sewer versus a septic?
Yeah, that we thought you guys were for.
Yeah. I just want to be clear.
That's for.
Okay,
and we're not pursuing a septic as an alternative. I was just trying to understand the threshold that we would have to hit to get conditional approval, and whether conditional approval was still. And this has to do with us trying to set our schedule moving forward, and that's all. And what we were using was the example of the Abda property, which was in the same situation as us, which received conditional approval before it had health department approval.
So my only thing would be then, now that I understand that we're all in sync with this, is that until he's happy with what it is, the path is correct?
I'm not, like I said,
I know, but what
I
you're saying is
don't want to
reasonable.
sound like doom and gloom, but it's a 9-year problem. And we don't want machines sitting on a property for 9 years, on 2 properties for 9 years.
Yeah, this our goal. I think
I know.
that had to do with a specific personality. Okay, all right. That was on that one, and that's the first item. The second item, the easement, where we just have that easement is a draft that's been attached. We don't see any issues associated with the easement on item 2.
That has to go back to the board of trustees.
Yeah, but they were generally comfortable with it, we just need to
Okay. The roof leaders, some of these items, are simply civil stuff that needs to be picked up, that you're right, that are from previous stuff that we will pick up. The one thing that I did talk to Ed about today is that we are showing tree removal. We are showing trees that we want to save, that it seems to be indicated that it would be a better course of action to show them removed. The question then that becomes is that the landscape architect is indicating that it would lead to some additional mitigation beyond the new trees that we're showing if we remove more. Could we do that with her offline?
Yeah, you know what, I don't know, speaking for me, I think that this site is so heavily treed, losing a few more trees is not going to be that much of a difference as far as I'm concerned. I'd leave it up to the other board members what their feeling is. But I think some of those trees were just so close to the area of disturbance that I don't see how you're going to really save them.
Right.
And they're huge trees. They're not small trees. So I think it's better that you show them that they're going to come down, so you don't have to come back here if you end up having to take them down.
Right, and that's the discussion we had. There's just a better course of action.
Yeah.
So,
but my more concern of what Suzanne had said too was your area for stormwater retention, underground stormwater retention facilities. I think she made a comment there. There's a large tree, a 30-inch tree. I think that's very close.
I got 36 here. We should modify that drainage.
To save that tree.
Right.
The other tree's so close to the house, I think, show them that they're going to be taken down. They're going to be better off.
That was the similar response that the arborist gave us when we were talking about saving trees. He's like, why are you saving trees? There's one right there. Okay.
Also with the construction, with the trees near the house, with the construction of the house, eventually, the root system is going to be damaged because those trees have
So some of the
time.
trees that we're showing saved, I think there's a misunderstanding in her that we're showing a paved driveway. We're not showing a paved driveway. It's a gravel driveway, which has less impact on the root system. And then some of the trees that look like they're right next to a paved or retaining wall are actually, they're coming out of, you'd have to see it on site, they're coming out of a rock. They're coming out of rock, they're sort of protected. They're coming out of ridge, so they're not actually going to be modified because the ridge isn't going to be modified.
Those issues you might want to discuss with Suzanne, because I think she made a comment too about some of the trees, and I thought so too, that there's some trees that were very close to the driveway that you're proposing, and that you may be doing damage to those trees too. It may not be irreparable, but you should take a look.
Well, I think the strategy in general that we'll do is we'll show them to be removed, or we may make a note that we may make attempt to save them, but we should consider them removed. I think that was the only question.
Because the other things too, you may save them, they look like they're saved, and then several years from now.
Yeah, they decline.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other issues that the board has on this? Because it really is engineering at this point.
Just one minor comment. I know it says in the zoning ordinance that site plans can be presented to the board at a 1 inch to 30 feet scale. I would appreciate if you could do 1 inch to 20 scale, because I find your site plans are just a little
Especially
small,
on this side, yeah.
It's difficult to read, so if you could scale it up to 1 to 20, I think that would be better.
We did the civil stuff, that's why it's on the larger sheet size. The civil stuff was on the larger sheet size.
Well, I think it's better than if you do them all at the same scale, so it's easier to compare.
You'll probably get it on the 24 by 36 if you know.
Yeah, we tried. We couldn't get it on there. There is just the issue is that PPR, the local printer, the cost to go to the next sheet size is astronomical. So we were trying to limit that. But that's we can do something.
Well, so you look, can't you move some of the detail? You have a number of details on your site plan sheet. Can't you move those details to another detail sheet?
I think it had to do with the shape of showing the entire site. It's not on
do your design, but it's just
not a big deal. We can do that. Sorry.
I think that's it. So if you address those items, but then come back the next time you come back, have be closer to getting the approval from the town on the sewer extension. Or if they're not, then show the septic. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Next item is 2016-22, 48 Kingsley Close, Eidelman in Israel.
My name is John Adams. I'm the architect for the owners, Sarah Israel and Leon Edelman. Leon is here. Today we did some back and forth with Han Engineering. We received, I think on the 5th, their memorandum, and we responded today and got subsequent memorandum from them. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it seems that we have addressed all of the issues that had come up from Han Engineering as far as the stormwater, as well as from Suzanne Nolan. Just to make it clear, the couple comments that we had, we added a detail to our call text, which Doug had requested. And for Suzanne, we actually moved the location of the call text so that now they're in an area where there aren't any trees or a drip line of trees, so there's no subsequent issue as far as disturbing the roots there.
And I think she had some comment about minimizing the amount of fill that's placed within the drip line of the tree to, I think, 2 or 3 inches of fill.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Would have any comments? No? Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter? No? Marion, do you have a resolution on this?
On September 7th,
Excuse me. You're okay with everything next?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, on September 7th, 2016, Sarah Israel and Leon Edelman received site development plan approval to construct an addition to the garage, install a patio, and create a light wall for the basement at their house at 48 Kingsley Close. On May 3rd, 2017, the applicants received revised site development plan approval to widen the driveway, install a curb, and construct a 34-foot-long, 6.5-foot-high retaining wall. And in December 2017, the applicants applied for another amendment to the site development plan to add 2 stone paths, enlarge the stone patio at the rear of the house, install new fencing, and regrade a portion of the backyard. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated December 5th and January 2nd listed several issues with the drawings which were adequately addressed in subsequent submission. The Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on December 6th, January 3rd, and February 7th. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Idleman Residence prepared by Studio Azura Architecture.
I have a motion to approve. Second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Approved.
Just give one to Marion. Just give this to Marion. Keep on.
Next item is 2018-06, 95 Riverview Road Court. 95 Riverview Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Board members. For the record, my name is Michael McDoherty. I am a professional engineer representing this application tonight for 95 Riverview Road. Unfortunately, the architect is not feeling well and he is not here. I have forwarded him over the comments that we received from the building department and the consulting engineer. The thesis, basically, it was, of their comments. So we will address those comments in short order and get everything back to the building department to hopefully get on the next planning board meeting and answer all the questions and move forward with this. But we would like to hear if there's any comments from the neighbors at this time as well.
Mr. McGarvey, why don't you just go a little bit into what the proposal actually is?
Okay, the proposal is a small addition, on a second floor addition on the existing home. A addition to the right-hand side, which is the garage. This could become a 2-car garage. And that's basically it for the house. The building department had some comments as to whether or not it required a variance or not, but again, I'm not the architect for this project. I just did the engineering for the storm water. So I really can't answer all the questions. Perhaps the homeowner, can you get me that?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, okay.
I had it. All right.
Do you know what else is being, the addition of this house?
Just identify yourself, sir.
I am Eddie Lai. I'm one of the owners of the property.
Do you know exactly what the addition encompasses?
Yes, we're roughly adding about 2,000 square feet onto the existing house.
But that's including the second floor over the existing first floor.
Yeah, the second floor on the ranch house, plus the little piece on the side for make it a two-car garage.
I guess there's some issue with it, where you're gonna be over on FAR?
That's correct. It's apparent that this lot is slightly undersized for the zoning, but we will adjust that with Mr. Maron. Again, unfortunately, I'm not the architect, and well, I'm glad I'm not the architect. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight to answer those questions.
Any comments from any of the board members? Doug, anything?
No, I mean, if whoever the architect wants to call and go over things.
Right. Well, I think because it is a substantial increase in the volume of the house. I think one of the comments in Doug's memorandum, number 4, scale information that compares the proposed residence to neighboring residents should be provided. The FAR coverage and lot size should be included on the aerial and shown in the table format. I think in addition to, what would be helpful is to show the houses immediately adjacent to this house in photograph.
Okay.
The front elevation of the house directly across the street and on either side of the proposed.
Okay.
So we can get an idea of the scale of this house versus the scale of the houses immediately around it.
That's fine, and that's fine with me for the simple reason that Eli's actually just built recently within the past few years, built a house to the right of this one, and the ones across the street are pretty large homes.
Okay, that's what we want to see, so we can get an idea of the comparison. Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter?
There's a formula, basically, that others have followed for doing the scale reports, and Ed can show you what that is. Your architect, who you just trashed, is actually watching this on TV.
Believe me, I don't trash any architects. Ask Silvio. I have a lot of respect for architects.
I just did. I heard it. It's recorded, so.
We will take care of that, absolutely.
So I think you have to address those comments in the memo. And
yes, we will most certainly address those. I was more worried about if there's any comments from the adjacent homeowners or neighbors. Nobody's here? That's great.
You're sick with the architects.
Yeah, exactly. You get back next month, it'll be like standing room only. Okay, that's it.
We'll see you next week.
Very good. God bless. Have a great month.
Next item is 2018-05, 26 Lewis Road, Emily and Benjamin Burley.
Hi, let me just get.
Oh, sorry.
All right, appreciate it. Yes, we're on now. Hi. Just in time, got everybody to sleep. Hi.
Sorry, it's confused.
John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing Emily and Ben Burley. This is the first submission for a project on Lewis Road. The project is for the expansion of an existing house. There's an existing house that's a one-story, modern, low-sloped roof house. The project is to make that portion of the house a two-story portion, and
What's
then
the elevation? Show that.
So here we can look at the existing. So the existing house, I don't know if you guys took a look at it, familiar with it. It's sort of a 1950s low-slope modern house. The footprint has sort of a U with a courtyard in the front. So that foundation we're trying to reuse, and we're trying to keep that in place. And what we're proposing to do, that's that existing foundation. What we're proposing to do is...
Sorry, since most of the neighborhood's in the front
geez.
row, can you flip to the other side?
No, stand on the other side, John.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just turn the microphone around a little more. Sorry.
You guys, if you're the neighbors, you guys are familiar with this house.
Now you're blocking George.
I lived in it for many years.
Oh, you did?
so
Okay,
yes.
so you're very familiar with this
Now you're
house.
blocking George.
Thank you.
Do you like that? No.
That's fine, keep going, John.
John,
There we go, thank you.
over for this.
Yeah,
one. You can, or move up with it.
We'll make it life easier.
Okay, so what we're proposing to do is on the footprint of that house, we're going to make that 2 stories or 2.5 stories that has an attic space, and then add a garage onto the north side of the house. So in terms of exterior elevations,
John, forgive me, the garage is, I'm trying to figure out which side it is.
yeah, well, why don't we just go back to the site plan for a second and just review it on the site.
It's where the,
outside. Is it where the deck is?
You have to speak
Sorry.
in the microphone.
Sorry, I'll wait.
Why don't you hold your comments?
No problem. Sorry.
But just quickly, I'll run through the site plan quickly.
I should know better.
It's not your show.
You're right. Old habits die hard, I'm sorry.
So the outline of the existing house is shown here, and then the garage and addition is here, if that makes sense. The approach to the house now is this way, right? So what's being considered the front yard is actually the property line along this side of the house is being considered the front right now. If that makes any sense. So then the design of the house is a series of gabled forms with a flat roof connector in it. The intent is to be relatively modern but still reference the gables. The tallest portion of the house is the one that is the garage addition, and it has to do with the existing slope. We're not excavating right now, we're just sort of showing the house positioned on the existing grade in that area. This is the elevation that's facing what is now you consider the back of the house. It's mostly glass to that side, but still has references to the gables on that side with some balconies and some flat roof portions. So in general, that's the approach to the house. I know the FAR numbers associated with the house are very large, but they're really, it needs to more be understood as just putting a second level on that existing form and then that garage addition. The reason the FAR numbers are so hard is because the basement faces the front yard. The entire basement is being counted as FAR and also the attic. So that's what it's making the actual floor area numbers are very high, but the real estate value of the house is much lower than that. I mean, not real estate value, sorry. The real estate square footage, what you would consider real estate square footage, is much lower. So then, in terms of areas, I don't know where the board would like to go on this. We could start with site plan related
Yeah,
stuff.
we'll open up to any questions, any comments from any of the board members. I think there were a number of comments from the engineer and the landscape architect, which included a lot of the comments that I would have had regarding it. One thing that wasn't brought up, though, is since you're creating a very large asphalt area in front of the house. I think it's about 90 by 30.
So this asphalt sort of courtyard in the front. So right now there's asphalt moving into this area here, and it sort of stops here. So there's sort of a trade. I don't think the overall asphalt area of the driveway is that much different than what is being proposed. we could look at that. It's probably maybe a few hundred square foot difference.
It's just gonna be straight asphalt, you're gonna do something decorative on it?
At this point, we were showing it just as asphalt. You know, as the design progresses, you may want to do a different paver. The issue with doing something more formal, like a concrete paver or something like that, is that the slope is coming up rather steeply here. So you could imagine this being as a flat rectangle, but that's not really accurate. It's going to be more of a sloped, you know, surface similar to what's there now in order to get access.
How is the runoff from that parking area, that driveway area being handled?
Well, one of the comments was the development of a stormwater system. Right now, we're developing a rain garden in this area. The details haven't been completed, but we would be collecting the runoff from that to go into that area.
And with the height that's being proposed, what is the visibility of the proposed house in terms of the adjoining lots around?
It's this is sort of on a hill side, so there's the way that the hill is sloped relative to the adjoining lots. The visibility when you're down the valley might be less, you know, because of the crown of the hill. I know that the house on this side, which is high, would probably have the greatest visibility, you know, the existing house that's over here. We haven't done really visual analysis associated with that.
Jane's house, we're on the other side.
You're on
You're
this
talking
side?
about Jane's house, looking down, right?
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably at approximately the same elevation as your existing house and Jane's house potentially, so it's going to be the house, the grade, it's going to be on a sort of a similar grade. It's hard there because it's very wooded, you know, in terms of establishing visibility. You know, winter visibility obviously will be different than summer visibility, but I think it's a very large lot for the area, so it should be.
Yeah, because right now we see the back deck.
John, we need to.
Yeah, I know, right.
John, out here. Gotta wait till the public comment, be on the record,
So John,
recorded.
given the generous site that you have here, you're not asking for any variances of any such?
We're not.
So you're complying on all aspects?
We are. One of the things that is mentioned here is that we're determining height from a average grade plane based on there being a 15% slope in this area where the footprint is. So Ed asked us to confirm that there actually is a 15% slope in there, so we're going to do a steep slopes analysis and submit it to confirm that that's the case. But that's the only thing that was a question, whether the height meets. If there is a 15% slope in that area, our height would meet the criteria.
But what about, I thought your comment number one, Doug, was that it appears the floor area ratio is exceeded and a variance may be required. Additionally, it appears a portion of basement and garage area should count towards FAR. The applicant should refer to section 224-137 of the village code for additional information. So I think you're going to have to check that out.
We need a little.
Yeah, we need to confirm that.
Yeah, we'll confirm. I think there might be an issue in the calculation around the basement, so we'll confirm that. But our analysis was that we didn't need any variances, and that's our goal here, was to not do anything except by right.
In May, we're not sure.
So I think the other thing about this is that, given the difference between what's there and what you're proposing, even though it seems like it's as of right, is to understand the scale in relationship to the other properties around it, similar to what's done before. And I've not been out there, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll go out and look.
Me too. But I think also that was one of the comments in Doug Hahn's memo, also number 4, I think, scale information. Yeah. Number 4, scale information that compares the proposed residence to neighboring residences should be provided, should be shown visually using an aerial and elevations. If they are provisions, right? What am I? I'm sorry. Am I here?
I think you're reading from the drawing.
I'm like, I don't have this I didn't see a reference to it. My apologies.
I was trying to find it.
Oh, okay.
You didn't say that.
I was kept looking through the
I just wanted to see if you were all paying attention.
I was scanning through all the
Would you like 2 aspirin?
I gotta do this more often. Okay, but I guess still though, as George was saying, I'd like to take a walk out to the site or drive out there.
Yeah.
See what it looks like compared to the surroundings.
The houses that are in the area are probably of similar scale. They're relatively large houses because the lots are big. I think you should look and let us know what you want us to do on that.
Sure.
The third item that's on the thing that I have in front of me is a wetlands issue. So we've delineated the wetlands that are on our site. What Doug and Ed have pointed out is that there's a mapped wetlands that we're within 100 feet of, so we're going to have to add the mapped wetlands that's associated with that, and we'll do whatever mitigation is necessary for that.
Yeah, I guess the school.
You'll have to do a report, a wetlands report for.
Yeah, I spoke to the.
For the two on the property and the one.
Right.
I think there are a couple of comments. One about number 12, about the impervious surface has been increased from the existing proposed conditions, therefore stormwater detention facilities are required. I guess that was one of my comments I was getting at too with the increase in.
Right, I think right now what's shown in the civil package is you have a single sheet that's identified the rain garden area. What we're going to try to do with rain gardens and not do subsurface to the extent we
The
can.
landscape plan should also include what types of plantings are going to be in the rain garden, in
Right.
addition to any
Right.
ornamental.
We actually jumped out on front on that, so we actually have the rain garden plants indicated.
Okay.
And we have some trees indicated. You mentioned that was there any comment from landscape on this? Because we didn't get that associated with it.
Yeah, I think there was.
We didn't get it.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah, it's on page 2 of Suzanne Nolan's.
First page.
That's where it's in the recommendations and requirements are on. We were on page 2.
Oh, it's a big one. Okay.
Yeah. So you can take a look at that.
When you submit, sorry, when you submit to the health department too, send us a copy so we can.
Okay, so we'll just submit that simultaneously to you guys at the health department. Okay.
And then also the other one thing that stood out was that I think it didn't seem to indicate in the plans that there was cut and fill, but then I think Doug made a comment here in number 20. The designer states on the plans that no cut fill material shall be imported or exported from the site wherever filling is proposed on the west side of the property. So I think.
Yes, we have a standard note that's still on there, says no cut and fill, but we're filling for the septic,
Okay.
so it doesn't make sense.
Okay, that's correct. I think the other items on there too should be addressed. So any other comments from any of the board members? George? No? Any comments from the public now?
Surprisingly, no.
The garage.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to give you a hard time. I like your architect, I like you.
The garage.
You have to, ma'am, you have to come up and
Identify yourself, and she takes this.
identify yourself.
The garage, which side?
Now who you are.
Cynthia Lake. I live right next door to the house.
what's your address?
I'm looking.
28 Louis.
28, we're 28. And
She's across from that property you own.
Jonathan, you drive up the driveway, Jonathan is before me, and then you hit my garage doors right here.
So where I
And
think
they are
you're
over
located
to
is
the-
approximately
Yes,
here, and then there's a
right.
property between, like a thin sort
That's
of
mine.
A-shaped property that's
Right.
John's that is between it, so you guys are over here somewhere, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
right.
That's right.
Is that right?
How far over?
Right. So this is the outline of the existing house. So this is the front door of the existing house now, if you can imagine.
Right,
if you've
yeah,
been up
that I
there.
know where-
So the garage is on the right side. So the hill that slopes
Okay.
down. So if you came up the driveway to that house, right, this garage would be the first thing you saw as you came up, right? It's on that side.
Okay.
So this area here is where the septic system is being proposed, so that's part of the reason there's no development on that side. So we're showing some screening trees right now in that area, some new hardwood trees, but there isn't any new building on that side of the house.
Anybody else?
Oh, there you go.
I had already mentioned this to you.
Identify yourself.
Sorry, John Siegel. I'm 30 Lewis Road, neighbor. There are there are several large trees on either side of the house. It's not my prerogative, but to the extent you could save those, I would recommend that. I'm sure it's in the landscaping comments, so if.
Right.
So.
I mean, one of the struggles that we're up against is that the septic system in order to, is requiring removal of a lot of the large trees on the side where the septic is. So that's something that's sort of unavoidable. There is supposedly a change that's going to happen at some point where you wouldn't have to remove trees from the expansion area, but that hasn't happened yet, is that right?
They've been promising it for years.
Yeah, the expansion area of the septic is like if your original septic fails, you're supposed to have an area where you can do it, you know, if the first one fails, but they make you
You may want
prep
to
it.
ask them about that, because
They made it smaller.
I don't want to, well.
Yeah,
we can
I would
talk
double
with
check.
Health Department about
Right.
it, because they may.
Do you think that there might be a leeway on that? Because I think,
We've been dealing with
what it is.
yeah.
They made it, they let it like,
I-
be slightly
Emily.
smaller, but that was
You
the
need
extent of it.
Oh, that was already discussed with it.
Can we keep the comments from the audience to a minimum? If you want to make a comment, then please come up and take the microphone and identify yourself.
So that street doesn't have sewer? Any of the,
Well, the sewer is maybe 500 yards away, even further. Yeah.
You're not at the mic. Shut up.
Okay. Okay, well, I think if you respond to the landscape architect's comments and to Doug Hahn's comments, we'll see where we're at, and we'll take a drive up there between now and the next meeting.
Okay.
To see if we have any additional comments.
All right.
Any other comments from the board? No?
All right.
Okay, thanks. Let's see if I can get this one. Next item, the last item is 2018-04, 41 Corey Marino, 220 Harriman Road. I got a nice
Good evening. My name is Sam Vieira. I'm the project architect, and this evening Corey and Paul Marino are also here, the homeowners. Primarily, the job, the scope of the project is basically the construction of a second story above an existing single-story residence. The construction part of this project is within the exact footprint of the home. There will be no site disturbance for that. The smaller, but
Excuse me, yeah, just take a conversation outside, please. Thank you.
a smaller but also very important part of the proposal is what affects the site, and that's that presently, as you can see on the site plan, there is a very narrow driveway that leads up to a single-car garage. It creates some issues for the homeowners for parking, not to mention the fact that they have to back out on a very sort of slender driveway out onto Harriman Road. So the proposal here is to widen the driveway so that they could park the cars side by side, create a sort of turnaround here so that they could potentially maneuver and exit in a forward motion. That would include reworking some steps here and creating a little walkway. There is presently a railroad tie retaining wall which we're going to replace with a modular block wall, and then over here we would have to do some sort of a small landscape wall also, retaining wall. We did a zoning data calculation. The house presently sits conforming. All of the additions will maintain its conformity. We won't require any variances. The only deficiency is that this is a zone which requires 20,000 square feet, and the existing lot is only 15. Just to quickly go through the floor plans, again, this is the existing conditions, some minor interior renovations. This would be the second floor addition over the same footprint. And I just wanted to point out that what we were trying to do with the elevations is, rather than go up with straight walls on the front especially, we incorporated this roof which comes out and continues over the existing front porch. And we're trying to the hope here was to mitigate, the appearance of a very tall and relatively small house. The house's footprint is only about 1,300 square feet, so it's a small house to begin with, and we're basically doubling that. Besides that, architecturally, it's sort of in keeping, and what you're going to see here by widening of the driveway is you're going to see a little bit more of the foundation wall.
Oh, so you're not creating a two-car garage there?
No, sir.
You're leaving it as a one-car garage, but you're doubling the width
The width.
of the driveway, and then you're also putting that hammerhead turnaround.
That's correct. That's correct. We received the comments from Han Engineering. Some of those are just clarifications of some things. we didn't want to go too far with the engineering because we wanted to sort of get some feedback and understand that we're all sort of on the same page as far as the size and the configuration and layout of this expansion. For the record, we explored a couple of different possibilities, but what we found was there is a sewer line that serves some of the homes to the rear that comes through their property. There's a manhole here, actually, and then it continues on to the sewer line in the middle of the road. Our concern was we didn't want to build over that because, again, it is not their specific line. It's a line that serves their neighbors to the rear. And also by going in this direction, there'd be a little, because of the topography, there would be a little bit more cut and fill. We felt that this avoided the sewer line and maintained and stayed with the existing grade, more so that there's a lot less disturbance on the property.
Is there an actual easement for that sewer line?
No, there isn't. This was sort of a surprise, and I mean, Paul and Corey can give you the details, but basically, after they purchased the house, they were alerted that the water department or DPW comes by on a sort of maintenance schedule to clean it out. That's how they found out. It actually was, the manhole was actually buried when I first met them. Mr. English was nice enough to come out there one day with me, and he exposed it, and him and his men marked out its general location, because they could eyeball another manhole beyond their property line to the south. And so that's how we were able to basically, but there is nothing on record from the original subdivision of that area. They did a title search and nothing shows up as far as that. It's very close to the house also, which is interesting.
Any comments from any of the board members? No? My only comment was I just thought you're creating an awful lot of paved area in the front there with the additional driveway and that hammerhead. Is there any way you can shrink that down? I mean, you can have a double-wide driveway now and then have a double-wide hammerhead there. I mean, that hammerhead looks considerably wider than is necessary to do a U-turn in. You know, maybe you can reduce it because, you know, also, how are you going to handle the runoff from this additional paved area? Where does the runoff go from this area?
Well, we were hoping to, I mean, this is relatively flat. We were hoping to collect it because it actually, the driveway does pitch back towards the house.
Mm-hmm.
So in an effort to collect that, we could do that either with the catch basin here and divert it to some Coltex or something, or do a trough drain on the property line and also collect it at that point.
Are you doing any screening? Well, it just seems, I don't know, you're going to have, seems an awful lot of pavement very close to the street. I mean, that's what you're going to see as you pull up to your house. Do you have a landscaping plan between the hammerhead and the street?
We will provide all that, but again, I was more interested, you know, as your comments are about the size and the amount of asphalt, I was more interested in getting feedback so that we could modify it if necessary, and then come back with all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted as far as the additional information that the engineers need in any kind of landscape plan. My concern about anything as far as landscaping that would be true screening would be the blocking of the visibility to pull out. So it would have to be very low and very tight over here.
Well, where's the pavement? The street pavement, though, looks like it's farther beyond your property line.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So
there is some space there.
So, yeah, I mean, well, you could do a little analysis then, too, like how far out can you pull with the car that you're still able to see up and down the street and still be able to do some screening there. I think just visually, I think from the owner's standpoint, to have the cars parked right out front there, it's less attractive than to be able to do some screening to...
Right. I mean, the intent is not to park a car here. The intent is just to pull the car straight in and then maneuver out.
Okay, well, then, again, that goes back to my other comment. I think you could reduce the size of that hammerhead to just be able to make a U.
Very well.
You know, a broken U.
Well, we'll work with our engineers to reduce it as much as they feel this is appropriate to be able to maneuver the car.
What about GTs?
Do you have to come just straight out? Can you make a couple of little smaller turns so that the hammerhead is smaller?
There are guidelines, and then usually the site engineers sort of handle that. There's some guidelines about the size of the hammerhead. But yes, I mean, we'll reduce it substantially, even if it's a two.
We'll take care of some of the view to the owner and the visibility.
One of the things, though, it's important to note here is that they're bound by a retaining wall on this end. So, you know, in some cases, when you can maneuver where the front of your car can sort of overlap and go on by the lawn, you know, there's a solid element that they're going to need to maintain as they try to make that maneuver to back out and swing the car around.
So where's the retaining wall? On that side of the driveway?
Right.
Okay.
This is the existing one.
Right.
There will be a smaller one here, but that's over on the walkway, which will have pavers. So it's this swinging around where,
Yeah.
they're going to have a hard time not clipping the wall. But we'll work it out with the site engineer. We'll come in with a much smaller hammerhead.
Are you close to the turn, to Cyrus Field? Are you almost at the?
No, it's a straight run on Harriman.
It's relatively straight.
Yeah.
No.
Any other comments from any board members? No? Any comments from anyone in the public? No? Then I guess if you address the comments from, I think, did Suzanne have comments on this?
The landscape architect? Yes, there were two comments.
Okay, so I think if you address those and take a look at the hammerhead, see you next month or...
Very well. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
They will turn around.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
They will turn around.
All in favor?